From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. I'm your host, Gavin Jackson, and this episode was recorded on April 26, 2024, from South Carolina Public Radio Studios here in Columbia. On this episode of The Lede, we look at changes made by the Senate in their version of the state's operating budget that the Chamber approved this week. We hear a songful testimony before a House Judiciary subcommittee, and we're also looking deeper into that $1.8 billion discrepancy on the state treasurer's books. We talked to Senator Larry Grooms, who is leading an investigation into the matter. We also have a few 2024 presidential campaign trail bites for you too, so stay tuned. And tune in by giving us a call at 803-563-7169. We want you to tune into our conversation during the wind down. We love hearing from you guys. We want to know what you're thinking about, what you're doing. April is almost over, then May the 1st through the 31st be with you. And we'll have a new edition soon, but give us a shout, 803-563-7169. The state Senate approved its version of the state's $15.8 billion budget this week. Like we've discussed before, a big difference between the House and Senate budget is how $600 million in surplus sales tax collections that have been accumulating in an account since 2020, an account for property tax relief, should be spent. Governor Henry McMaster recommended lawmakers put it toward fixing bridges. The House moved to put $500 million toward property tax relief, and the Senate's plan puts $100 million toward accelerating an income tax cut by 0.2%. We've talked about that before, so that helps everybody, not just property tax owners. Now, the remaining money would also go toward road and bridge projects, and some $53 million would be set aside for the University of South Carolina's new medical campus at Bull Street here in Columbia. Now, the Senate budget has a higher salary boost for state employees, giving those making less than $50,000 a $1,375 raise. And those above the cap would get a 2.75% increase. There's no carve-out for podcast hosts. I've been trying. Then everyone would be one, but isn't everyone already one? Both the House and Senate agree with boosting first-time teachers' pay to $47,000. That would be up from $42,500. Now, again, both chambers are in agreement on starting teacher salaries and salary increases for other teachers. So that's one less thing for them to fight about in a forthcoming conference committee that they'll be ironing out the differences between their two versions. The Associated Press reports that late Wednesday, though, that senators did add a budget proviso, which is a one-year provision to the budget requiring students use the bathroom of their sex assigned at birth and stay during overnight field trips in rooms of people of the same sex. Over in the House, the chamber was alive with the sound of music. Well, I guess one little office was from the Black Building. The public is always invited to sound off during testimony in subcommittee and committee hearings, but this week, one person chose a different approach when testifying about the Judicial Merit Selection Commission Reform Bill S-1046. Remember that passed the Senate, and it was before Representative Jay Jordan's Judiciary Subcommittee. And that's when Sandra Boyd chose to sing for several moments.
So glad I have him. I got Jesus, so I've got joy. Thank you. I appreciate you hearing me today.
Yes, beautiful, just nice little break there from the doldrums of testimony. Now, the bill was slightly amended by the subcommittee and will be taken up by the full Judiciary Committee next week, so looking like it will make it to the governor this year. Looking like it. Those were some big moments from this week, and Mayan Schechter will bring us an update on medical marijuana in Tuesday's podcast, so stay tuned for that, folks. I want to return now to a big story that we're continuing to follow, and that is the $1.8 billion discrepancy in the state treasurer's office. That was the focus of Friday's episode of This Week in South Carolina that I want to bring you part of, including testimony from Treasurer Curtis Loftus, who refused to sit down with me for the show, but he was before Senator Larry Grooms' subcommittee earlier this month that was looking into the matter. I did have an extended conversation with Grooms about the findings published in his subcommittee's interim report over that discrepancy. But first, Loftus's testimony, which at times includes questions from Grooms and Georgetown Republican Senator Stephen Goldfinch. Here is Loftus.
As you know, there's a law on the books that says, for accounting purposes, the CG is the complete check upon the treasurer's office. I'm not an expert in the statutes of South Carolina. I'm not a lawyer. But there are very few statutes that are as clear as his office is a complete check upon my office in the realm of accounting. The state treasurer is the state's investment banker. And for the analogies that has been used about the banking and the account balances and whether someone can find, the state's accountant is effectively the retail side of the bank. They're the ones you deal with. When you deposit money, when you want to know how much is in your accounts, that's effectively the part of what the Comptroller General does. The state treasurer, on the other hand, is the investment banker. We do not determine the ownership of funds. At any point in the system, we do not determine the ownership of funds. That is done before the funds come to the bank. The state's money is pooled. We manage pooled funds that are pooled or combined for the investment purposes. We do not invest by agency or agency owner. We only pay the state's obligation after being instructed to do so by the Comptroller General.
Well, I'm trying to figure out why it's taken you 7 years to
Because there's
invest time
probably-
to try to find out the problems. I mean, what higher priorities has your office had over the last 7 years than to try to fix these unresolved issues?
The Comptroller General is the state's accountant. He is the head of the SCIS oversight team.
But you're the banker.
Yes, sir.
Bank,
And there's not a single problem in the bank.
There's not a single problem.
Not a single problem. The 0993 account is custodied, it is invested, it is reported on every year, and it has been audited.
So this is everybody's problem but
No, sir.
yours.
No, sir. We want to work. When Richard Ekstrom called
Do
me,
you share any responsibility
listen,
in these
when
problems?
Richard Ekstrom called me,
Do you
in
share any
December-
responsibilities with these problems?
I'm more than happy to share responsibilities. I told my staff the very first day we were told about this, I said, the worst that happens is 4 agencies are involved with a conversion that didn't go well. We have to work together. When Richard Ekstrom called me in December to tell me about the 3.5, we had a meeting in my office 3 days later, and it was, what can we do to help, Senator? It was, what can we do to help? We didn't even know about the $1.8 billion. They didn't tell us. Nobody told us. Nobody told us in January, February, March, April, May. We found out at the end of June and July. You didn't find out until October.
But you've known since 2016 and 2017.
Yeah, you know, and so did the CG, and so did the state auditor, and so did SCIS.
And you sat on your hands with your staff.
Well, that's
and not
just
a damn thing
disingenuous.
was done about it.
That's
And
just
now
disingenuous.
you're complaining that your staff had to work thousands of hours on a problem that's existed for more than 10 years, or about 2014.
That's
2015.
disingenuous. That's disingenuous. It's disingenuous.
I want to make sure that this subcommittee understands what you're saying. There's a pool of money. Nobody knows how many people own it or who owns it, correct? It could be owned by DOT.
Could be.
Could be owned by the federal government.
Could be owned by
Could be
nobody.
owned by a whole bunch of people that are owed interest. What do you think the federal government's going to do when they find out that the General Assembly's been spending the interest, Mr. Treasurer?
Nothing.
Nothing. They're going to want it back, Mr. Treasurer.
If you know something I don't know, it is incumbent upon you to tell me.
Okay, I'd love to tell you, but you know what? We have to rely on you for that.
Well, Senator, you've made a false construct. You've
There's no
said that
false
we owe the
construct.
federal government money. We have no reason to believe we owe the federal government money. You have said we do. That's a false construct.
You have said you don't know. You have said that you don't know. Isn't that a breach of your fiduciary
No.
duty to not know who owns that money? That the possibility that that money and the interest thereof cannot be spent, and yet you send it to us every year anyway.
It's a false construct. It's false.
I'd love to know
Senator,
how.
that money exists whether I know who owns it or doesn't own it. It exists. I've got to deal with that. So maybe I should put, because if it's federal, maybe we need to go put it into a non-interest bearing account. You tell me what to do.
Now I'm going to pivot back to my interview with Grooms, who I started off by asking to give us a 30,000-foot view of what's going on here.
We've issued an interim report regarding this $1.8 billion error that resides within our state treasury. That is, our state treasurer is the head of our bank. He's the state's banker. When you go to the bank, you put your money in your savings account, your checking account, and it's the job of the bank to keep track of how much money you have in your account. But your money's not there at the bank. Your money is swept out of your bank account and is invested by your bank. And when the money's that you have on deposit are required. When you write a check, the bank takes those investments and puts the money back into your account. In essence, the bank gives you an IOU, but it keeps track of how much you have. Our treasurer's the same way. There are multiple bank accounts within the state. The treasurer has about $60 billion in investments, a lot of taxpayer money. And he takes those dollars and he invests it to get a return on investment, but he's supposed to keep track of where the monies came from so they can be put back when needed. In 2016, the treasurer lost track of $1.8 billion. We now know, lots of documentation to absolute proof, that the actually it was 1.5 billion back in 2016 that he lost track of it. Where does it belong? And instead of trying to fix it, the problem actually got worse. It went from 1.5 billion to 1.8 billion over the next 3 years. The treasurer knew about it, didn't try to fix it, did not ask for help trying to fix it, and what he did is he hid it. He coded it so it could not be visible to others involved with our state's accounting system. And then he sat on it, and he has a duty to disclose financial matters to the General Assembly and to the public, and he failed to do so for 7 years.
We know if the former Comptroller General knew about this money, Comptroller General Ekstrom?
I don't know if he knew about it, but the system is set up so that the accountant keeps a check on the banker, and the banker keeps a check on the Treasury. State law actually says, and it calls for them to be a check on each other, to keep identical sets of books. In case there's an error in one, they'll let the other know it needs to be resolved. They weren't checking each other, the comptroller and the treasurer. I believe they both knew that there were problems in each other's houses, but they weren't interested in house cleaning. So instead of being a check on each other as the law prescribes, they were in essence being a cloak on each other, hiding the errors from others.
Yes, that's a lot to handle right there when we talk about our state's finances. And I want to ask you, when it comes to that, how do you accumulate $1.8 billion for what would be a pass-through account? I know that's what your subcommittee is trying to look into, but do you believe this was being run as someone's personal slush fund? Was this someone's own investment account? What's the read so far as you continue to investigate? Well,
up until 2015, all the cash investments had homes. That is, all the money was spoken for. We knew where it was supposed to be. And we're talking about a lot of money, about $60 billion on the state treasurer's website. You can read, invest about $60 billion in cash assets. So those are the assets, but he has to have a home for those assets. Part of the home could be, he also invests money on behalf of local governments, the local government fund. That's an investment account that he keeps track of. Some of those investments rightfully belong within the state's retirement system. Some of those monies are federal reimbursement monies. We spend money on roads that are federally eligible or federal highways. We do the work, we get remittance back, federal highway funds. That's a big account he has to manage and keep track of. There are other federally restricted funds, a lot of pass-through money. COVID money, in instance, comes from the federal government. The federal government sends all sorts of monies back to the various states like ours, and it has to be segregated and put in accounts. The treasurer takes those monies, invests those, and makes them available when they're needed as prescribed by law.
So, Senator Grooms, when we talk about that, when you list all these different pots of money, it's not clear, obviously, where this money came from, but it's also not clear that it would easily go back to taxpayers. A lot of people are calling for that money to be refunded. You're saying it's not that easy because we don't even know where it came from.
Well, it's not surplus funds. It's not funds that came into the Treasury that did not have a home. These are monies that were lawfully placed within state agencies, within trust accounts, within the retirement system. That's where those monies rightfully belong. And we have to do the analysis. That's why our subcommittee recommended in the state budget, the House went along with it, we now have $4.2 million to bring in forensic auditing, to bring in a forensic auditing team. We put some more money for additional staff at the Treasurer's Office to be able to assist with the forensic audit. It's going to take them some time. A lot of documentation has to go back into when the treasurer lost track of these funds, where did they rightfully belong? And then we'll decide. If they are surplus funds, then we can make a decision on what to do with those. But under law, they can't be surplus funds. They had already been appropriated. They were within the Treasury, and it was the Treasurer's job to keep track of them.
Three conclusions of your report, this interim report, are that Treasurer Loftus has failed to maintain the integrity of the state's banking and investment records. He has known about the unresolved differences for at least 7 years, and that any suggestion that he did not know about the differences is implausible. So is there any confidence in the Treasurer at this point? What can be done to remedy this situation? Is there talk of impeachment? What's the move right now going forward, just based on this interim report?
Well, the governor asked us, our committee was prepared to recommend that he be removed from office. The governor asked us not to do that. There are people, knowledgeable people within the Treasury that can help get to the bottom of this. We need their cooperation. Well, actually, we need the cooperation of the Treasurer. Based on his actions up until this point, I'm not hopeful that we'll have that. But the people of the state of South Carolina need to have confidence that their tax dollars are being wisely looked after. And right now, this is incredible. When the banker doesn't know where the $1.8 billion exists, and if it does exist, where it's supposed to be. That's not a small sum of money to lose track of.
Yeah, billion, not million, billion.
Billions.
Even still, yeah.
Billions. And he says that the money is in the right place right now. The money's not in the right place. He's lost track of it.
This is a story that we're going to continue to watch and we'll keep you updated on as well.
Thank you.
You can watch that full interview, this podcast, and more content at youtube.com/South Carolina ETV. All right, we got some trail bites for you.
Oh, eureka!
First up, Pennsylvania.
Go Birds.
The Keystone State.
Go Birds!
I'm not going to say go birds.
Go Birds, go Birds, go Birds, go Birds, go Birds.
Oh, don't worry, I'll put it in there. The Keystone State had its primary on Tuesday, and former Governor Nikki Haley, get this, racked up 17% of the vote in that closed primary despite suspending her campaign more than a month ago in early March and having never campaigned in the state. It's the latest warning sign for the Trump campaign, since Pennsylvania could very well determine who wins the White House this fall. Some details for some context here. President Biden won by about 80,500 votes in 2020. Haley received at least 147,000 votes in Pennsylvania's GOP primary. And if you didn't know, 147,000 is more than 80,000. So.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of Haley, her husband Michael, who is a major in the South Carolina Army National Guard, has returned home following a near year-long deployment with the U.S. Army to the Horn of Africa in support of U.S. Africa Command. Now let's look at President Donald Trump. The New York Times and other outlets report that prosecutors have accused Donald Trump of violating a gag order 4 additional times, saying that he continues to defy the judge's directions not to attack witnesses, prosecutors, and jurors in his hush money trial. Meanwhile, the first week of Trump's hush money trial is wrapping up. David Pecker, the former publisher of the National Enquirer, has been on the stand for 4 days giving testimony of his involvement in paying for and suppressing negative stories about Trump during his 2016 presidential campaign. Across in the aisle, President Joe Biden gave remarks after signing into law Wednesday that $95 billion war aid package with aid for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. Here's Biden.
And it's an investment in our own security. Because when our allies are stronger, and I want to make this point again and again, when our allies are stronger, we are stronger. I'm grateful to all those in Congress, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, who voted for this bill. It's a path to my desk. It was a difficult path. It should have been easier, and it should have gotten there sooner. But in the end, we did what America always does. We rose to the moment. We came together, and we got it done. Now, we need to move fast, and we are. Over 2 years, Russia has been responsible for a brutal campaign against Ukraine. They've killed tens of thousands of Ukrainians, bombed hospitals, deliberately picked them out, bombed hospitals, kindergartens, grain silos, tried to plunge Ukraine into a cold and dark winter by striking their power grid. Ukrainians have fought back, defending their country and their families with extraordinary courage. Many of you have been there with me many times. It's amazing what they do. I mean, it's amazing.
And I want to keep with Ukraine and foreign funding for a minute because it is a big deal that energizes people on both sides of the aisle. Many people say that money should be spent in America on American priorities, not helping other countries fight for their own freedom against one of our oldest adversaries. Looking at you, Russia. It should interest you that 80% of that total foreign aid package will be spent right here at home. That's going to defense contractors and also U.S. Army and military bases across the country. So that money is getting pumped into our economy and also fighting our enemies. So interesting how that works. But also a part of that aid package included a TikTok ban.
TikTok, Mr. Wick.
That's right. The new law requires that TikTok, which is owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, that it has to sell its company to an American one within a year or face a ban in the country. This comes amid growing fears and discussions that started in the Trump administration over the Chinese's ability to gather huge swaths of data on Americans and influence their thinking through the app. Expect some court challenges in the offing. Welcome to the wind down section, our little break from the news. We're glad you're here. A.T. Shire, producer of the podcast. I'm glad you're here
Thank
as
you so
well.
much. Thank you so much.
TGIF.
Yo, say it again.
Yo, TGIF.
Oh, man. I'm TGIF, even though you're listening to this on Saturday
It doesn't
at the
matter.
earliest.
You get the vibe.
Yeah.
You know
You
it.
get it.
You
You know
get
how
it.
good it is.
Slam's laptop shut till Monday.
You know, so good.
Etc.
And how many more Fridays do I have before I have a child, you know?
One?
Yeah, maybe one. Truly, that's a great guess.
Which is why I'm taking you out big tonight, bro.
This is the last night before we go to college, and we can't show up to college.
9 o'clock.
Yeah. No chance. Anyway, Gavin, I say that we try to keep the news out of here, but
Oh, no.
there's some
Did it
breaking.
creep in?
There's some breaking news that has creeped in. In front of you, there's a paper. It's do not turn it over. I'm going to tell you that this morning at South Carolina Public Radio, we received an unsolicited fax.
Oh.
It just came out of the machine. No one, it just showed up, okay? I want you to turn that paper over. That's what we got. Yes.
I knew it was coming.
Describe to the people what we
It's a
received.
sheet of paper.
Yes.
It says clairvoyant psychic mediums, psychic readings by Pearl,
Yes.
tarot card, palm, aura, soulmate reading, chakra balancing, karma cleansing, dream. Oh, am I giving away free advertising
I think,
here?
yeah, Pearl is getting it for
Pearl's
free.
getting
Don't
it free.
give the number, but Pearl, whoever Pearl is just firing off faxes to random phone numbers. How is it 2024 and we're getting psychic faxes?
I could tell you because I'm sensing it right now. Due to a misprint, we are resending this.
Yes, it says that.
There's a 212 area code number,
Which
on
is in
here,
New York.
Which is New York. Shocker! I thought it was gonna be maybe a Florida area code, but it's one or the other.
Yeah, it could be Arizona.
I do need advice on all matters: life, spirit, mind, and body.
Yes.
because you have been failing to do that for me.
I've been very preoccupied.
So are you telling me that Pearl she got the wrong number for 803-563-7169? So she just faxed this instead.
She could call in, yeah, but she's faxing. I assume she's just letting the spirits take her and just dialing over her fax machine and firing these babies off.
There's just a fax out there that's just speed dialing numbers and combinations
Yeah,
of
and
numbers.
she's in a fugue state, hitting these numbers and send over and over and over again.
Not even a website. We're just going straight phone number, like
I'm saying
legit.
like not even an email. Like this should be an email
or spam text,
yeah.
like any number of spam. We're going old school.
I'm surprised this
they
isn't.
can't stop me on the fax machine.
I'm surprised this isn't a forward of a forward of a forward of a forward from an estranged aunt or something. You know, like
It's a Facebook post.
AKA a Facebook post.
I was going to say, it reminds me, I think I've mentioned this before in the podcast, back in the day when I was working at the Daily Kent Theater at Kent State University all
Brag.
4 years.
Brag.
I would every now and
4
then,
years strong.
I would every now and then go to the fax machine, the Xerox, and just like dial the newsroom office number and see who would pick up because then you just pick it. I mean, you had to get your jollies up somehow.
Yeah, it
That
was a
one of the
different
few
time.
ones-
It was a different time.
And then I'd sit there and giggle to myself.
That's like when you pick up the phone at home and someone was on the internet.
Oh, yeah. I got the phone!
I was on aim.
But you guys had 2 lines.
We had 2 lines because
We were
we were. I mean,
How you say
obviously.
rich? How you say rich?
From New Jersey. Okay, all right.
Oh, it's understood.
Yes, I had.
When you don't pump your own gas, there's a certain amount of cachet.
I'm glad you brought that up.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up.
always bothered me because sometimes you would be like, okay, I go to school in Pennsylvania, I forget that you don't pump your own gas, and they're like, are you insane? Get in your car. You don't know how this works. And you're like, I know how an ATM works. Like
your cell phone's you're gonna catch on fire if you use your cell phone.
They act like it's technology that you, as not a gas pumper, could not possibly understand. And
Magic of New Jersey.
it's truly insane to me. It doesn't make any sense. But the bagels are good. So I'm not
there
gonna
are
argue.
trade-offs here. You know, the taxes might be high, but the bagels are incredible.
The bagels are good. Okay, my parents, they are moving
They're
to South
coming
Carolina.
down. We brought another one down.
So
make room.
My access to bagels is dwindling.
pipeline.
It's dwindling. So I'm
It's a different
very
kind of
nervous.
Keystone pipeline there.
Keystone XL. Yeah, it's the
all
X.
starch.
It's the double XL. The other X is for bagels. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's a Jersey thing.
It's
obviously.
a Jersey thing. We detoured it all the way to New Jersey. Anyway, Gavin, that's enough. I'm busy. I have to prepare for the child. I got a cardboard paper cut. Like it really. I yelped. So it's time. It's
happening. The signs are online. He just like it's like Pearl said.
Pearl knew. That's why.
So I've been calling from the work. I've been calling from my work number. That's why.
You the baby gift is going to be her first session with Pearl.
She needs to start strong. I want to ask you though, are you prepared? I know you're saying you were joking, we're laughing, we're having fun, but are you prepared? Like every day, any day now, it could be.
I'm living with a
birthday.
gun against. Yeah,
It could be a birthday.
I am prepared. I'm not a patient person, you know, and so it's been 9 months, and I'm ready for this to go. I'm ready for the child and the mother to be healthy. And Caitlin to have been pregnant and no longer be pregnant.
And we're doing a pod from the hospital, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm living in suspense.
I
too.
was actually
Caitlin's
joking.
cool with that, right?
I
She
was
said
actually
school?
joking with Caitlin that you would be there, and
What did she think?
she was like, "No." I was like, "Yeah. No. He's cool. He's cool. He's cool.
He's part of the family.
He can come in.
He
He
has
can
to be
come in.
here. This
Yeah.
is important for.
Yeah, I'm not big on cutting umbilical cords, so I was going to leave that to Gavin. You know?
It's like christening a ship.
Yeah, it's no different. And Gavin is great on the water. He's good
Yeah, boat christening
of ships. Yeah. Anyway, people,
they've all sang sadly.
it's
And I've been meaning to ask Pearl about that.
Pearl. She can't give us a good reason for it. Anyway, Pearl, if you're listening, we know you are. Please call in. If anyone knows Pearl, I got a great looking lifeline apparently. So
So strong.
yeah, get in the hopper. Otherwise, you're going to get more of this. Okay, so have a good weekend. Hope I don't have a child. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of long clips in these pods.
The next pod, AT could very well be a father. So live your best life right now. Be like Pearl. Give us a shout, 803-563-7169. And, of course, you can always leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We love that, too. And you can stay up to date with the latest news on scetv.org and southcarolinapublicradio.org. And don't forget to support your local newspapers. For the South Carolina Lede, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina.
It's making a weird sound.
Because it's the dregs.
It sounds like you're ripping a vape.
Dude, are you ripping a vape right now?